One evening, she goes hunting the grey wolves in the forest for a magical stone called Magicite, which gives her special abilities and also powers the magic flying broom she rides. After a successful hunt, she returns home from her quest, but her father, King Fiance, who isn't a fan of her science, notices her looking bruised and doesn't fail to scold her. Later, she gets cleaned up and treated by her maid named Ilya, who has taken care of her since she was a little girl. After that, she goes to meet her friend Tilty, who also practices magicology so they can use the magicite to make more of the medicine that gives her special powers. Meanwhile, while Anisphia is free from the most royal duties, her younger brother, Prince Algard, is being forced into a political marriage with a girl he isn't very fond of named Euphilia, the daughter of Duke Grant's Magenta. Algard isn't happy with the arrangement and starts to take a particular interest in another girl, a commoner named Delaney. This upsets Euphilia, so she reminds Lainey that the prince is betrothed and advises Algard to spend less time with her to prevent rumors from spreading. Back at the castle, Anisphia decides to test her magic broom again, and that same evening, Algard's class is having a soiree at the academy to celebrate their graduation. But rumors start making the rounds when Euphilia is present, but Algard is not. Soon after, he arrives with Delaney as a significant other and takes the opportunity to call off his engagement with Euphilia in front of everyone, accusing her of attempts to harm Lainey. As he continues to berate Euphilia, who is already in tears, Anisphia loses control of her broom and crashes into the party, and when she realizes what her brother has done, takes Euphilia away on her broom. Later that evening, Duke Grants arrives at the castle to speak with the king concerning their children. Suddenly, Anisphia barges in with Euphilia and requests to take Euphilia as her own. The king is pissed off at her request, and as usual, begins scolding her, but then she reveals that Algard had called off the engagement. The news leaves the king more infuriated, and the duke is disappointed. Euphilia apologizes and blames herself, but her father consoles her and assures her that it wasn't her fault. As a result of the stigma Euphilia now carries, the princess suggests taking her as an assistant for magicology research, and presents her to help her recover and build a better reputation. Initially, the king is not in support because he suspects that Anisphia only desires Euphilia as a romantic partner. After all, the princess has stated long ago that she didn't intend to marry a man. However, he and Duke also consider the benefits of magicology to the kingdom, so they agree. Afterward, Anisphia gives Euphilia a tour of her workshop and shows her all the inventions. At night, when the two girls lay in bed, Euphilia asks why Anisphia chose to help her, and the princess admits that she just wants to see people smile. The next day, Euphilia moves into the villa so she can resume her duty, and Ilya helps her settle in. The maid also informs her that she has been summoned by the king for questioning, presumably concerning the failed engagement, so she has her breakfast, and not long after, Anisphia returns from a joyride on her broom, but also manages to crash once more. The prince has been so excited ever since Euphilia arrived, and decides to create a magic tool for her. She invites her to test some tools, and first in line is a mana-powered blade. The blade is quite impressive, and Euphilia activates it with her magical powers. Next, she asks her to test a broom, which she reluctantly agrees, but then also crashes. Afterward, Euphilia speaks with Ilya concerning the princess' recklessness, and the maid confirms that it's just her nature. She advises her to leave if she feels the arrangement is too much for her, but she admits that she likes the princess, but just needs time to get to know her better. Not long after, Euphilia stands before King Fiance with the Duke present, and she recalls the incident at the party and how everyone blindly sided with Algard and Lainey. Afterward, she goes to see the maids who made preparations for the wedding to thank them for all their efforts. Later on, Anisphia gives her blade, claiming it's the perfect magic tool. Euphilia then tests the magic sword, and as she uses the incredible blade powered by mana, Anisphia just stares at her in awe. Afterward, the two sit under a tree, and when Euphilia thanks the princess, she expresses how happy she was to make the sword. She then names it Arsensial, which means rainbow, because of the different magical elements Euphilia possesses, just like a rainbow. The two just sit there for a while, and then Anisphia falls asleep on her lap. Somewhere in the Black Forest, a dragon has appeared, and it drives out all the other monsters, causing a stampede. Meanwhile, back at the villa, Anisphia wakes up and discovers that Euphilia has caught a cold after staying out so long. The princess takes her inside and tends to her tucking her in so she can fall asleep, but Euphilia seems to be bothered by something. Ever since the engagement was called off, Euphilia lost all sense of purpose as all her life she had been groomed to be a queen. Anisphia senses her worries and assures her that she too would soon find her way. When Ophelia wakes up, she goes out and sees Anisphia training with one of her blades, and then Ilia explains to her that the princess is very skilled and has been training from her young age. She opens up to Ilia explaining that the only purpose she ever had was being the future queen. Ilia understands this because she too was born into a predestined life. She advises her to take things slow and make the best of the opportunity that the princess has given her. Suddenly, Anisphia arrives with the news about the dragon and decides to go after it to obtain its magicite by slaying it. Elsewhere in the castle, the king had called a meeting regarding the stampede approaching and the dragon. Algard, who has been on house arrest, enters the request to slay the dragons for the kingdom, but on the condition that he is allowed to marry Lainey. The king believes that Algard's mind has been poisoned and refuses, but immediately he is informed that Anisphia and Euphilia are already headed for the Black Forest. Anisphia and Euphilia arrive at the forest to aid the soldiers and the Adventurers Guild, who had been holding back the stampede of monsters. She asks that Euphilia stay back and continue to keep the monsters away from the capital while she goes after the dragon to slay it for its magicite. Anisphia had previously revealed the reason behind her quest for the stone to Euphilia, explaining that it gave her magic powers and that she plans to implant it into her body to permanently obtain its power. As they fight the monsters, Euphilia discovers powers she hadn't even used before, and as usual, Anisphia watches her in amazement at the incredible display of her magic. Finally, Anisphia gets to the dragon, but when she flies up to slay it, she observes that her mana blade can't cut through. Soon, the dragon defeats her and she falls to the ground, but Euphilia catches her and pleads with her not to go back up alone. The two team up against the dragon. They find its weakness and subdue it. Then Anisphia approaches the dragon, and with the last of its energy, it curses her, and she feels a surge of a strange magic course through her body. Later, a victory party is thrown to celebrate, and everyone seems to have forgotten about the engagement that was called off. Euphilia goes out looking for Anisphia to thank her, and the two share a dance. After acquiring the magicite from the dragon, Anisphia takes Euphilia to meet with Tilty, who would help her harness its power to give her magic. On arrival, Euphilia discovers that Tilty too has problems controlling her magic because of the side effects she suffers whenever she uses it. As a result, Tilty gave up her magic and devoted her time to studying Magicology just like Anisphia. With the knowledge the dragon cursed her with, she finds the safest way to use the magic from the stone, which is by drawing a tattoo on her back instead of implanting herself with magicite. A while later, Anisphia is summoned home and finds out that her mother has returned from diplomatic duties. She is invited to the interview with Miss Lainey concerning the allegations because it has been confirmed that Euphilia is completely innocent. At first, she is not too keen on attending, but her mother insists that her insight on the matter would be appreciated. Afterwards, Anisphia tells Tilty about it, and she reveals a theory for why the people would wrongly accuse Euphilia. The princess decides to speak with some of the people who condemned Euphilia, but realizes that they can't recall the incident. The next day, Lainey and her father arrive before the royal family, and after giving her testimony, they all seem to believe her, but Anisphia senses something strange and interviews her in private. After the interview, her suspicions are confirmed, and she reveals that Lainey has the power of fascination but is unaware of this. She concludes it's the reason why everyone who interviewed her immediately sympathized with her, and suggests that she join her in the villa while she masters her power. Later that evening, Algard finds out that Lainey's powers have been discovered, and it appears that he knew all along, and was behind allegations, so he plans to quickly get Anisphia out of the picture before she interrupts his schemes any further. That brings us to the end of our recap. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Stay safe, and see you next time.